Who else was flabbergasted to find out what a birth actually entails? My husband said he'd thought cutting the umbilical cord was more like a ribbon at a ribbon cutting ceremony. Turns out it's more like a garden hose in terms of how hard it is to cut through. And he swears what they gave him to cut with was about as sharp as the scissors we give preschoolers. For me, it was to see the OB wearing a full face shield. And then, after delivery, the realization that it was 100% a good idea. As soon as a woman announces she is pregnant, female family and friends start telling her their own horror stories about difficult birth experiences. I know that after even a difficult birth the hormones kick in to lessen the mother's trauma, but they have no mercy on the pregnant. I had many problems the first time and a cesarean the second time due to the damage caused by the first birth. So when I hear men and some women come out with the old chestnut of it's nothing, women have been having babies since time began. Or it's fine, that's what women's bodies are made for. I could just scream. In the old days it was simple. If you were lucky, you had a smooth birth. If you weren't lucky, you died. If I could grow babies in a fish tank instead of inside me, I have had at least 3 by now. The idea of birth is absolutely abhorrent to me. I literally feel like my menstrual cramps are incapacitating and max out on ibuprofen, so I really cannot fathom the pain of giving birth. I know there are people that are all I want a natural birth. But if I ever have a child, I will take any and all painkillers offered at max dose. I might be willing to risk more than max dose TBH. Y'all can experiment on me. I am too weak to be a woman. Ugh, I had a 4th degree episiotomy. After getting cut twice, I tore all the way down my butthole. My baby ended up with shoulder dystocia and I ended up with 100 stitches on my hoo-ha. All this happened after I waited for the epidural to wear off, so I could push. So now, I have an unwanted designer vagina and butthole. What's surprising is that so many people do it again, lol. Right? It's like nature was running a survival game show, and birth is the final challenge, except the prize is a tiny human who never lets you sleep. Birth can get ugly and cause PTSD and death. Back in the day, it killed 13 of women. People like to only look at the good parts while ignoring the suffering and sacrifices it can lead to. Worse, some people like to look at it like it's only beautiful and natural, or pretend women exaggerate the pain or trauma. They should try labor pain simulators before they say such ignorant things. Never forget, evolution is a D student and always has been. It's not the best design that's passed down. It's the good enough, they survive to multiply that do. After giving birth to our first son, the midwife told my wife that the placenta wasn't detaching from the wall of her uterus, so they had to reach inside her to try and pull it out by hand. And when they weren't sure they got it all the first time, they had to go in again. My wife has said that even with drugs she didn't have drugs during the birth, not intentional. We just got to the hospital and it was go time. Getting the placenta out was way worse. Before they started my induction, my OB gave me what she called her scary talk. She mentioned that I could potentially have so much damage from birthing a human I could fart uncontrollably the rest of my life. I was like I changed my mind. This is a huge reason as to why I don't want kids. I applaud every woman who's done it, but I do not want to experience childbirth. I was surprised the hospital billed my son for his space in the room, but I'm pretty sure that shit doesn't fly in sensible countries. Humans are actually terribly designed for birth. Imagine kangaroos, for example. The female kangaroo has basically no idea she just went through birth, because the little kangaroo is barely developed enough to crawl into the pocket, and there it's growing until it can get out of it. One of the reasons why I never want to have children, Elmo. Well, pretty sure my husband and I both were, much as we'd read about it, and taken classes, etc. I was induced at 2 weeks past due date, excruciating. Do not recommend. 72 hours elapsed, at which time they do a C-section. So, okay, annoying, but whatevs. They hung a sheet up so I couldn't see the surgery happening, but our fave nurse convinced my husband to take a peek at the surgery, so he, unexpectedly, got to see all my innards. Ooh. Then my anesthesia wore off, and I stubbornly kept telling the surgeon who was looking at a screen with my vitals. So if it had really gone south, he'd have knocked me out, that I was only feeling pressure, not pain. Which I could tell by the look on his face found increasingly funny. And I think he thought I was kinda tough, exclamation, until I saw my baby AMD, heard her voice. Then, pain, now it's pain. They immediately knocked me out. I saw someone say recently that the first time you stand up after giving birth and gravity kicks in, you feel all your organs that got shoved up into your ribcage fall back down into place. Yeah, nah, I'm good with them where they are. No pregnancy for me, thanks. Placenta leaves a salad plate-sized wound behind. There's massive bleeding for days with clots. The shakes. Bones shift, muscles shift, sometimes permanently. Brain literally shrinks, and there's brain fog. PPD, sometimes even psychosis. Breastfeeding triggers an existential dread. Learned recently, it does have a name which I can't remember. C-section involves cutting several layers to reach the womb. Maternal mortality rates are high in US compared to the rest of developed world, especially worse for women of color. Maternity-paternity leave is a joke in US. Many women lose their jobs careers. And y'all still have men genuinely claiming being kicked in the balls is more painful.